Hi, I'm Jamie Johnson of the Johnson Law Firm, where we do estate planning and probate, and we do it well. Today I'd like to talk to you about whether or not you should have a trust if you have a family history of degenerative mental illnesses. And the answer to that would be yes. A trust can be very beneficial if you have a family history of this, because it will make sure that not only are you financially taken care of, but it can also make sure that you are taken care of physically as well. Not only to pass along your assets along your path, a trust can be used like a medical directive. It can be in place to make sure that the person's assets are protected should they suffer an episode of a mental illness, or if their mental illness is a degenerative illness, much like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, where it can affect a person's long-term ability to take care of themselves. Through the trust, you are establishing a person or a trustee that will be in charge of your assets and your estate to make sure that you're okay, make sure you're taken care of. Along with a medical directive, you can make sure that your medical decisions are taken care of by someone that you trust. So with the estate planning and use of a trust, you can make sure that although you have this unfortunate illness and family history of this, that you will be okay, that you'll be taken care of. Now you need to do this beforehand, because in order to establish a trust, in order to establish a medical directive, you must be of sound mind and testamentary capacity at the time of the signing. If you wait until after the illness has begun to take place, that trust or that medical directive can be challenged. Usually a medical directive is not challenged. I mean, a hospital might invalidate it or choose not to follow it because they believe it's not a valid medical directive. However, a trust could possibly be challenged based upon who's going to possibly receive money from you or how the trust is laid out. So you need to make sure that if you're creating a trust because you have concerns about your family history of mental illness, then you need to make sure that the trust is created before those mental illnesses take affirmative grip upon you. Or if you've already been diagnosed with that mental illness and you're concerned that someone might try to challenge it, you need to make sure that that trust and that the attorney who's assisting with that trust is aware of your family history, aware of the fact that you've been diagnosed with this, so that way they can take the necessary steps to ensure that the trust cannot be invalidated and cannot be challenged. Usually this is done by the attorney will record or videotape the actual execution of the trust. So they're going to ask you questions about your assets, they're going to ask you about the trust, what your goals of the trust are, what your intentions are, your understanding of what's going on, what's happening. So that way they can establish that you do have testamentary capacity at the time of the signing. And that's what's required. It doesn't matter if you go nuts an hour later. The question is, at the time of the signing, did you have testamentary capacity? Also, were you subject to undue influence? So they're going to ask you questions. Is someone forcing you to sign this? Who recommended that you do the trust? Why did they make that recommendation, or did they say why? So that way they can try to establish whether or not there was undue influence. Because if they establish that there's no undue influence and that you had testamentary capacity at the time of the creation of the trust, your trust will be valid and it will be there to make sure you're protected. Not just you are protected, but that your assets are protected, so that way they can provide for you should you fall victim to your mental illness. If you have any other questions about what to do in terms of how to plan if you have a family history of mental illnesses, whether it be psychotic episodes or whether it be Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, reach out to the Johnson Law Firm. We'd be happy to answer those questions for you and direct you in the best manner to help you out.